Hello, my super, uber, yummy YouTubers. I'm so happy to see you. I don't know how many times I'm going to keep re-recording this sort of video. You have no idea the amount of work it takes behind the scenes to set up for something so simple. Really. Okay, so I set out a tarot tag the other day. So it's called Make Your Own Deck 250. And essentially, it's going to be the first of the series so that we can learn tarot together. Of course, I've been learning since the early 1990s and maybe a little bit before that on my own. So self-taught, basically. And being self-taught is far more easy these days because of YouTube, because of the internet, and because books are so readily available. I mean, you don't just have to go to a bookstore and see what they have available on the bookshelf that they've pre-selected for you. You could go and do your own internet searches, find globally where you want to buy books, and find the thing that you want to tailor your learning for tarot cards. So my tag basically is inviting you to participate with me and with anyone else who's responding to the tag. I'm really excited. I hope some people are interested in following with us because it's my very first tag, and this could be a lot of fun. So, in the meantime, the first assignment, the first tag, is to make 4 aces of your own, one for each of the suits. I am going to show you what I've done for mine so far. It is unfinished, but to sort of spark a little bit of enthusiasm, I'm going to show you what I have so far. Okay. You have no idea what goes into setting up, just trying to give you a good picture of a card. And yet, the best setup I have is da-da-da-da, pinching it in my fingers and just holding it beside my face. So far, this might be the best thing. So take a good close look. And this is something, if you are interested in tarot, this is an image that you can find pretty much anywhere. And it's a standard Ace of Cups for the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. We're going to focus this conversation just on the Ace of Cups. So, if it seems like I'm giggling, it's because there's a lot of editing going on. Sometimes I'm a funny bug. So what does the Ace of Cups have to do with your reading? When you pull the Ace of Cups, first of all, I have to approach this with, well, I have to tell you how I approach tarot. I look at it from a way of personal development. So I discovered it quite a few decades back, and I found my first deck at a metaphysical shop in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and it was called the Black Unicorn, and I think it's closed. It's been closed for some time. That was the most perfect metaphysical shop ever, and I got my first deck there, as well as a number of other things there. That's when I first started. I mean, when I found tarot, I was a very young adult who was experiencing depression. And I had been experiencing depression probably into my teens quite a bit. But at that point, I had another counselor who also happened to be a doctor. And she introduced me to a lot of really cool metaphysical stuff. And the fact that she was a doctor and practicing this way it made me right away couple science and spiritual together. I was able to explore through her for the few years that I knew her, how those things, how your wellness, your physical wellness really depends on your spiritual wellness. So I would go home, and not that the doctor would teach me tarot, but I learned tarot on my own and explored my own journey to wellness through tarot. Why? Because the 78 cards of tarot each of the cards shows a different aspect of the human condition we call life. We all experience these very similar aspects of life: love, finance, creativity, and intelligence, and of course the major milestones that we see through the major arcana as well. So here we are with the very first of the cups, Ace of Cups. So this is the first. Now, what do we see? We see a cup. We see a hand coming out of nowhere. That is now you can look at that from different aspects. The hand coming out of nowhere can be the hand of a god, of a spirit, of a larger entity or being. And it can also be argued that it is yourself, your own higher self, that is offering this, making an offer to you. Somehow this is coming to you and into your reality. There's an offering that's coming with a hand. The offering is a large cup. It is a goblet. It is a chalice. It can also be said that it's the, the Holy Grail. The W that's written on the cup, it has been suggested that that is weight. The W for weight, one of the people who are involved in the Rider-Waite-Smith system. Does W have anything to do with your divination? No. And I don't really look at the Ace of Cups as having, or any of the cards as having a way of telling what your future is. That is not, if you are looking to this series to say, okay, how can I read the cards to see how many children I'm going to be having, or when some man is going to be coming into my life, or what's going to happen when I, build this house, and how many years such and such a thing is going to happen. I don't do divination. What I do is my own personal development. So that's why I think that the tarot works for me, because I'm not predicting something. I think that I have a lot of control over what happens in my own journey. I think that through my thoughts and my feelings that I change the biochemistry of my body and my brain, and that helps to manifest reality for me. So if anybody's going to tell me what's going to happen in my future, I have to consult myself. Now, the way that I consult myself, that is through tarot. So I am able to put for me, it's projection. I am projecting onto the tarot, and it is telling me things about life, and then I interpret what it is that they're telling me. And that's why the cards don't lie, because if I am honest with myself, then I can try and get different aspects, different truths, different messages that perhaps I hadn't readily considered before. Because consider this: do you actually sit down and think, introspectively? Do you meditate? Do you really ask yourself questions? And if you do, is it verbal? Is it out loud? Do you journal? For me, those things are critical. And the tarot for me is a way of journaling, essentially, out loud, verbally. So when I look at these symbols, for instance, the 5 streams of water that are coming out of the cup and going into the water, or it can also be said that they're coming from the water and going into the cup. But there are definitely a connection between the cup and the source of water. The water. So when I look at these different symbols, whatever they may be, I can then pull from the question that I have and look at the card and find a story that makes sense to me. Now, there's so many things to pull out of cards. And when you make a spread of 1, 2, or 3 cards, then definitely you will find a link between all 3 of them that brings your truth, your message together for this day, for this moment. That is the best way that I can explain to you what the tarot is for me. When I do a reading for a client, it is really pretty important for the client to speak to me, not because I want to tell the client what they want to hear necessarily. It's not a money-grabbing thing that way. It's not a dishonest sort of misrepresentation of the facts that way. Why it's important to have a client's input is because the more that they say, the more that I can pull out the meanings, the various meanings in the cards. So they don't have to tell me a million different things, but they do, they would benefit from getting a better message if they did tell me key things about their question, their query. Okay, so that's why when I sit down to read the tarot for myself, I will often say it out loud if I'm just alone in my room, or I will write down the question or the problem that I am looking to get some clarification on. So I don't approach it in a way that I'm talking to some entity that's not visible with my physical eyes. I use it as a way of introspection. Okay, so that's clear. Somewhere in there, I did mention different things about the card, and hopefully I'll be able to stay on topic. When we're talking about cups, we are talking about emotion. Emotion and introspection and inspiration. And the water, whenever there's water, it is a spiritual aspect. Okay. What else can I say? There are 26 what is called seeds. If you look at these little droplets, I used to think that they were drops of water just sort of spraying around, but apparently there are 26 seeds. Those represent the 26 letters, which you can assemble letters, and that it is a way of assembling the language of your emotion. I suppose I should sit down and actually count those seeds. They still do look like drops of water to me. So the cup is the receptacle. It is a feminine symbol. And you will see throughout the 4 suits, there are 2 female suits and there are 2 male suits. So the 2 female suits are the cups and the pentacles, and the 2 males are the longer ones, the rods and the swords. So here we are with a feminine, very receptive receptacle. It can be sort of compared to the womb that receives the seed. It is a receptacle in that way. That's why they call it feminine. A very feminine energy. Now, one of the things that we look at here is that the cup is so full that it's, if you look at the water going into this direction as opposed to connecting upward, you can say that my cup runneth over. So you are filled with emotion, so much so that it's abundant and it's flowing over the sides and into the river below. So this is a sign of abundance, of prosperity. Abundance, not so much of material goods, but of emotional aspects in your life. So when this card comes up, these are the sort of things that you're going to be looking at. It talks to you about an abundance of emotion. And emotion is not necessarily just the soft, passive, receiving, female, nurturing, loving, joyous, sort of giving emotions. It is all of the emotions. So you're also going to be looking at pain and anger and frustration and envy. It is pure emotion. The other aspect of this is that it's the number 1. The ace is the number 1. I do not know why they call it ace. I don't know why they put a word there as opposed to just simply the number 1, because all of the other minor arcanas have a 1. That's something I've never come across. However, it is the convention that we simply perhaps don't question. There's a word that depicts this first card of the minor arcana, and it is ace. So given that it is ace, it does represent the number 1, and it is the first thing, so it shows a beginning, a potential, an opportunity, a certain amount of power that that comes with this abundance, and it's the beginning of an emotional, either a journey or something. Something is happening. I really do have to pay attention to my throat chakra. Something has been just making me cough every time I start talking. So, pardon me if I hold off on doing videos because I cough. I will not make videos, so I do apologize. So yeah, my throat needs some healing. I'm not sure why. But here it is. Here I am vocalizing and getting out and expressing my throat chakra, expressing myself. So hopefully this will get better. If for no other reason than my vocal cords need to have some exercise. So here we are using an emotional force. When you see this card and you're talking to a client or you're reading for yourself, consider your journey with intimacy. Intimacy it can mean physical intimacy with one person, with a number of persons, if that's your thing. But it is not just physical intimacy. It is the intimacy with also friendship, a connection with another person, another soul, another being that is based on emotion. So presumably love and friendship and kindness, but there can also be more of a shadow aspect of it as well. So here you can also look at empathizing with others, with letting your heart lead the way as you're leading the way, beginning a journey. And I think that pretty much touches on most of the symbols that are in here. Now there's also the lily pads down below, and those are also aspects of a spiritual bit. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. And there's the dove above, holding what looks like a Eucharist for communion. Now, having had a Catholic upbringing, I've always looked at this as being a symbol of Catholic sort of ritual practice, which is, the celebration of communion. It looks like this here is the Eucharist, and that this is the dove. The dove means peace. It's bringing peace. So you have peace and prosperity and communion. I often struggle with this traditional depiction of the Ace of Cups simply because it does show communion. And I've had a different relationship with this card over the past almost 30 years. And the reason being is that looking at communion and having been to church and celebrating Mass, where you say, the priest will pick up the host and say, "This is my body." Pick up the chalice with the wine and say, "This is my blood." So the belief system is that you're eating flesh and drinking blood, which I know has a lot of pagan roots, which I know has a lot of historical sort of connotations, which I know has a lot of philosophical interpretation that you're not actually eating flesh and you're not actually eating or drinking blood, that you have to believe that it is the flesh and the blood and that it's not cannibalism at all. But I have often struggled with the entire concept of, do you want to be vegan? Do you want to be vegetarian? But yet you're eating what is the body and what is the blood. So there's been a lot of struggle with me in my relationship with this card, simply because of the whole aspect of communion. Now I have some friends who are Catholic, and they don't miss Mass every week since I've ever known them, like forever, for 50 years. Well, I'm not 50 years old, but I've known my friend since I was about 3 or 4. And her family, they go to church. So if I want to talk to them about anything Catholic, and get their perspective on it, they're the ones who helped me. The mom gave me something to read, and it is basically that you are in communion with everyone at the church. Church being not the building, but church being the people who are amassed, that they're in the congregation. So now when I look at this card, my relationship with it has progressed to the point where I look at this and I see that you have the opportunity to be in communion with, in alliance with, emotionally bonded to, spiritually aligned with the other people who are around you. So that is how I read this card. It's a very personal interpretation that I have. I don't know that much of anyone else has, that, you know, most people probably ignore the fact that there's a host there. They may point to it and then just ignore it. But in my readings, I do include it in the message that it brings, because I mean it's right up there. It's on the top of the card, and it's actually a predominant symbol in here. So given that it's a cup and that this is a card that talks about spirituality and emotional wellness, I can't exclude the fact that this is a card that tells me that you are in communion with, spiritually aligned with people around you. Yeah, so that's my own thing. You're not going to find that, I don't think, in any other book. I certainly haven't. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to just close up with a few final statements, but what I'm also going to do this week is I'm going to compare the Ace of Cups with other decks that I have and their imagery of the Ace of Cups. And then I'm going to compare the symbols within the cards to show what they mean. So this is going to be a really good study, I think. I think we can have some fun with it. This is one book that I really recommend when you're wanting to look at the symbolism of tarot. So it's called The Ultimate Guide to the Rider-Waite Tarot by Johannes Feiberg and Ellen Berger. So here, I'm just going to give you, okay? The reason why I really love this book is that it goes through, let's just say here, I'm going to show you for Ace of Cups. This is the spread here for Ace of Cups. So it gives you the card, some information about it down below, but then it breaks down. You see how the different symbols are itemized with numbers, and then those numbers are then explained down below, so that if you want to look at the cup, it will be number 5. You look up number 5 on the other side, and it will tell you about the cup. It tells you about the cup 1 here. This is a larger cup, and everything else is shaded out. Cup 2, the interpretation about cup 2, the second interpretation. And then here, the W that is on the cup. So, and it does that for everything that's in there. And this is where I saw here, the 26 drops. So I'll read to you just a few things about the symbolism as it says here. So the 26 drops, it's divine grace, human tears, connection between water and air, spirituality, highlights the transition between above and below, the 26 letters, the language of feelings. Okay? Yeah, there are a lot of bits of the symbolism in here that I haven't covered. And there's just, I mean, the card as a mirror. Water is a symbol for spiritual life. The cups give the water as a representative of our spiritual aspects, form and being, our needs, our dreams, our premonitions, our wishes. Man as a vessel, participation in the flow of life. Okay? So these are I just love this book so much. And every time I go into it, there's more to learn, and you can't just memorize everything about tarot. You just can't. I mean, well, okay, so maybe some people can, but I do a lot more forgetting. I do a ton of learning, almost as much forgetting, and what's left over, that's what I can talk about. So it goes through something like this for absolutely every card in the deck. The last thing that I want to show you, I mean, one day I'll talk to you about all the different tarot books that I can recommend and everything, but we're already into, almost a half hour. So I want to just stay on topic as much as I can and give you what I have been working on with regard to the tag that I'm putting out. So what I'm hoping is that you will participate and make one card for each of the 4 aces. And what I'm doing is I'm putting it in a book. So yeah, on one side I'm writing down little ideas, and on this side I am starting with a teapot that's pouring into the teacup. Right now, my teacup has a heart. It has a saucer. It's pouring so much that it's overflowing the emotion all over the table. It's not colored because it's not finished. I'm not sure exactly if that's all the symbolism I'm going to add in there, if I'm going to keep it simple like this or if I'm going to dress it up. I'm thinking about writing different pieces of information, keywords on the borders. Each one of the top, the bottom, and the left and the right border may or may not mean anything. But this is definitely, a really good start. So there you are. I don't know what you're doing for your card, but I really hope that you can at least leave the comment, a little comment in the box below to let me know if you're interested in participating in this tag, if you are working on it, because I may or may not just hear from you when you actually post the 4 aces, which could be any time. And in the meantime, I'm trying to stay motivated and hope that somebody's interested in participating in this tag. So please let me know. Okay. So this is the book that I was telling you about. I'll also show you, see here, Ace of Swords. I started working on my Ace of Swords. My sword in this card is going to be a letter opener, double-edged, opening a letter. And the letter opener, there's my sword. And this is, the whole connection to the sword and knowledge and information. So there's a letter with information in it. What else do I have here? Pentacles. My Pentacles, where did my Ace of Pentacles go? Ace of Swords, Ace of Wands. Well, so far my Ace of Wands is not too exciting. It's a branch. But my Ace of Pentacles disappeared. Oh, it was because I had done a cut and paste. It's actually in my email to me, so I can print it later. It's a maple leaf because I'm Canadian. And so my pentacle is going to be a maple leaf, which roughly has, 5 points. And somehow I'm going to incorporate that into my Ace of Pentacles. So that is my work so far. Is there anything else I want to say? I guess I could also show you this book. This is a book that I've had for a couple of years. It is a lot more complete than the one that I'm showing you, the smaller one. Whoops, with papers falling all over. I found a gazillion stencils and stenciled a bunch of pages. I wonder if I can do this decently. I really don't know. I'm going to have to make a better flip through. But here, each page will be, roughly like this. So I put, physically actually made paper, made pencil lines on one side, and I wrote down explanations about what the Empress would be, for instance, for this card, and then I made stencils. So on any given page, there's writing. These books come with, from the dollar store, and they come with 80 pages, which basically is what I needed for 78 cards. So depending on where you are in the book, you will see that there is stenciling and writing on every single page. And as the years progress, I build on the information that's available. So each one of my cards, each one of the cards is represented on a different page. This is my 4 of Wands here, and it has a lot more. So maybe I could do an actual flip through of that book one day. Okay, so we're almost at a half an hour. I'm going to try and keep this brief, but for your assignment, I hope that you have found a little inspiration in working with the Ace of Cups for today. I'm going to try and do a short, similar video tomorrow for another one of the aces. And at some point, I also want to do a comparison of all of the aces that I have in different decks. So the different decks, when they, all of the different cups in all of the decks, and all different, the Ace of Pentacles in different decks, and compare the symbolism there. So we'll see how that flies. And it is going to be a really good learning experience, because some of the newer decks keep to the Rider-Waite-Smith, but they omit different bits of the original symbology, the original symbolism. So I think that it's good that belief systems do evolve, that the tools that we use do evolve, and we certainly have a lot of access to the original. So having some newer versions of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is, I think, really, really an intelligent way to go. If for no other reason, then we certainly criticize and learn about our process so far. So we look at the people and how they were basically all Caucasian, able-bodied. They had the belief systems were all heterosexual. So yeah, we really question all of the symbolism in the original system, and that's why when these newer systems or newer decks come out, we're able to sort of learn as a people at this point in history that we're different from who we were 100 years ago, and I think that we're going to continue to evolve. So I would anticipate that the deck will still be morphing even in 100 years from now, and that the learning that we do today can really affect who we become as a people tomorrow. So that is my thought for today. Please let me know if you are participating in the tag down below, and if there's anything that you'd like to know, if there's anything that I can touch on to make this learning journey exciting for you. Thanks. Onward and upward. Take care.